1071live.com, the Legislative Hour with your hosts, Art Smith and Kevin Hall.
And good afternoon. Welcome to the Iowa Legislative Hour on this beautiful, magnificent spring day. I'm Kevin Hall, along with my co-host Art Smith. Art, are you enjoying the weather today?
I am. It's always a pleasure to see white stuff falling, and here in Des Moines on May 2nd and presumably on May 3rd, it's going to be. The good news is we're not seeing anything sticking on the ground, so it's just annoying. It's not really causing any big problems for me. So.
But it has literally been snowing pretty heavily all day in the Des Moines metro area, and if the ground wasn't warm, I think it would be in big trouble.
Oh, we would be, and the worst part is the folks in the weather world were like, well, 11 o'clock, it'll be warm enough, it'll just be rain. That didn't happen.
No, it's still snowing.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of big trouble. Glad to be joined this week by State Senator Brad Zaun from Urbandale. Brad, great to see you.
We're good to see you as well.
Brad just snuck in here, running a little bit late. I assume it's been a busy day at the Capitol.
Yes, in fact, Kevin Koester is supposed to be here. He is right now they're actually debating their last bill. I think they did the last amendment, so he'll be here shortly soon.
Okay. And that's a standings bill, I believe.
Actually, they were doing a fuel.
Okay.
A fuel mix bill.
Oh, really?
I'm not familiar with that bill that well, so you'd have to ask him about that.
So
we haven't seen it in the Senate.
Technically, the legislative session is supposed to end tomorrow or today.
That's correct. Today or tomorrow.
What's going to happen?
I wish, of course, I would be a very wealthy person if I could guess that, know the answer to that question. My guess is we'll definitely be there next week. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't surprise me if we're extended past that. What we could do, I think what everybody's hoping for is that we come in next week and get everything done, get all the conference committees done, and then probably go extended into the weekend and just cram everything in. But it wouldn't surprise me. It really depends on how the negotiations go.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what has gone on at the Capitol this week. Of course, one of your favorite topics, traffic cameras, was debated on Monday, and the attempt to ban them statewide failed 27-20, and that had to disappoint you.
Well, what was really disappointing, first of all, we were missing 3 of our members. All of them had very good reasons not to be there. I think we had a couple of them that were farmers, and the ground was ready to go, and they were doing their work. I know that Jerry Bain said that he was planting corn. So he wasn't there. Then we had another senator that had an illness with one of her children. So I was down 3 votes. But with that said, it was very disappointing because I know of at least 4 different senators that came to me from the Democratic Party that said they support what I was trying to do, get rid of the traffic cams. It is not a partisan issue. I see it more sometimes as more of a generational issue. It seems like some older Iowans like those traffic enforcement cameras, and then some of the younger ones seem like they don't like it. But I did have several of them come over to me and tell me they sure wish they could have voted for my amendment, but during the conversations of their caucus, they were told that this is the way they need to vote.
Doesn't that drive you crazy?
So wait a minute, you just said it was a nonpartisan issue.
Well, it was a partisan issue this last week.
Every Democrat voted against it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I hear from Democrats and Republicans, independents, statewide, and it really is not a partisan issue. I know some of the most liberal people, libertarians, hate them. And certainly it was very disappointing. I gave a great argument on why these cameras need to be banned, including some new information that I had, and it just, of course, it failed. And I'm going to go after it again next year. Yeah.
So obviously you're not sitting in the room, but any speculation on why the caucus leadership with the Democrats was?
You'd have to ask Senator Gronstal that question. I don't know. I'm going to guess that one of the debate, in the debate, Senator Sodders from Marshalltown, who is a Democrat, and is in law enforcement. I think he's a deputy sheriff up in Marshall County or somewhere up around
Marshall
there.
County.
And he stated that, listen, if you don't like the traffic cameras, vote your city council people out or your county supervisors out. And certainly I responded to him. I says, that would be great, But the fact is, most of the people running through Clive or any of these other communities, they don't have that opportunity to vote those city council members out. And the proliferation of these cameras are out of control. I gave a lot of testimony, in my debate, and so it just was very disappointing. We minimally, I'm not going to give up on banning them. I don't like them, period. But certainly, the Department of Transportation has tried to do some things and trying to put some rules in place. At least on our state highways, which they control, and our interstate systems. We are the only state in the United States that allows these traffic enforcement cameras because of a problem that we have in our state code.
Wow. Doesn't it drive you crazy, though, on an issue like this that you said it should be a nonpartisan issue, and then you have the entire Senate Democrat caucus voting against it? I mean, how frustrating is that? These guys, instead of standing for what they say they're for, they got to go with the Democrat team.
Well, Kevin, welcome to my world, because that is what happens about 99.5% of the time this session and any sessions I've been involved in before. I mean, when you're in the majority, you get to decide what's in and what's out. The House has a little bit different rules than we do in the Senate. I mean, I know there's been several times where they have overruled the Speaker Paulson on different amendments, but we don't have that available to us in the Iowa Senate. They live by different rules than we do.
But it drives you crazy.
It drives me. Yes, it does drive me crazy, because we should be making decisions based on what's right and what's wrong. And I have voted times I've disagreed with the governor or the Republicans. Not very often, but sometimes, and I think that it's healthy to have those conversations and do. You're there to work for the people, not for Republicans or Democrats, for the people you represent.
It's mind-boggling the way things work up there.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about House File 527. That was the bill that would collect DNA from anyone convicted of an aggravated misdemeanor, and you guys debated that over in the Senate earlier this week, and it did pass. It was 29-20, I believe, was the final vote. Which way did you go down on that issue?
I voted for it.
Okay.
I will tell you that of all the votes I've taken in the 8 years that I've been there, that was the hardest vote, where I actually, when the vote came up, myself and Senator Chapman sat back and didn't know where to vote on that. I certainly understand both arguments. As a libertarian, I don't like the government to have all this information. What they were talking about is, they were talking about, of course, felonies, convicted felonies.
Right, which they already do collect the DNA from anyone convicted of a felony.
What's called an aggravated assault. And those are bad crimes. They're convicted as well. What happens is, in the state of Iowa, most other states just have felony. Well, several years ago, it was before I got there, they came up with a new charge level of charge, which is an aggravated misdemeanor. And in most other states, those aggravated misdemeanors are a felony. So what happened is, did I make a good vote? I don't know. I really did a lot of research. Obviously, there's advances in technology. I want to catch the bad guys. I think what really sold me, or just tilted me towards voting for this, is the recidivism that is going on in crimes. And there is definitely data out there that shows that if someone is charged for a felony and they do their time in prison, that they go ahead and certainly violate the law and do another crime. From that aspect, I'm glad that I voted for the DNA bill. I certainly know this is a priority of Governor Branstad, but I really was torn on that bill. That was the hardest vote I've taken since I've been there.
And, public safety across the state is overwhelmingly for this, because they believe it's a valuable, law enforcement tool to be able to catch people. And it will. It'll help solve some crimes. And there's a website out there, I forget the name of it right now, but it relays all the unsolved major crimes that have gone down, and there are thousands and thousands of unsolved crimes. And for me personally, I understand both sides of it, but in the end, I think this is an important law enforcement tool, and I think it will help us solve some serious cases, like maybe the poor Evansdale girls.
Well, there's a lot of cold cases that are out there as well. There might be people that have been charged for a crime,
right?
That this might
that are innocent,
right? That might help them out. This is the big argument, is the slippery slope here. How much information do you want the government to have on you? But let's just be realistic here. These are people that have been convicted of a felony. These are aggravated misdemeanors, which are pretty serious crimes. And so
the Senate stripped some of the, I guess, lesser aggravated misdemeanors.
Right,
the House went ahead and said any aggravated misdemeanor. You guys took some of those out of it and sent the bill back to the House, where presumably I would think it'll pass and then go to Governor Branstad.
Well, I would guess that, but it was I might regret that vote that I took, and but you try to do the best thing, and very seldom. I don't know if maybe on one hand where I've actually sat in my chair and I didn't know which way I was going to vote on it.
That's interesting.
And really didn't. One that was really surprising is I did not get hardly any emails in regards to this. I got a few emails from public safety people, but none from the average constituent.
Interesting. I know the Liberty Iowa PAC was trying to push people to vote against it, as was Senator Kent Sorensen in the days before.
I would imagine that your average Iowan probably thinks this is a good thing. I really have a hard time not believing that that's the case. And I'm talking about people that probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about all of the constitutional questions and civil rights questions.
Well, and conspiracy questions. What is government going to do with my DNA?
And, frankly, that's, I don't, okay, so we're not talking about your DNA. We're not talking about my DNA, because we're not going to be doing aggravated misdemeanors.
That's right.
But and frankly, when someone has committed a crime and been convicted of that crime, there's always some amount of limitation of rights associated with that, including freedom of movement and voting and some of those things. And, obviously I don't think we want to invade people's entire world because of whatever they've done.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is unreasonable at all.
Well, I did it. I can't take it back. So.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, I think it's a good bill. Brad, I'm glad you voted for it. What was the party line breakdown? It seemed like it crossed party lines. It was
definitely across party lines. Yeah. I saw several very, very. I'll tell you what. My observation would be the most liberal members of the Democratic Party voted against the DNA bill, and then we had some in our caucus that voted against it as well.
Interesting. Okay. You are watching the Iowa Legislative Hour. I'm Kevin Hall, along with my co-host Art Smith, and pleased to be joined by Senator Brad Zaun, who's a semi-regular guest on the show. Glad to have Brad here as the legislative session winds to a close. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call at 1-855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. Brad, what else has gone down this final week? I mean, it seemed like last week was just a dead week and practically nothing got done. Now, everybody realizes they're not going to get your per diem anymore. The session's over, and you're trying to cram everything in here in the final week. What else major has gone on in the Capitol this week?
There really wasn't. We did the standings bill, which was huge. We did the RIF bill, which is a pretty big bill. Really, both of those bills are spending too much money.
And can you just briefly explain what each of those are?
Well, the RIF bill is actually a fund that we have to take care of a lot of the Department of Natural Resources and some of the other the other areas there. RIF ended up being a lot of extra things. I don't have the bill in front of me right now. Like we're putting some money into the Des Moines Zoo, which I support, and there was but it's a lot of pet projects is what it is, and then. The standings bill is the same thing. It is the Christmas tree bill. You could put anything in the standings bill, policy or not policy. And what I was really excited about the traffic enforcement amendment I had is I got a vote. I have tried to get a vote on that for probably, I'm going to say 3 years being very unsuccessful because it's ruled non-germane, which means to the listeners out there that the president rules that it's out of order and it doesn't fit the title and the code section. But the standings bill we did, really, all the conference committees met. I know they talked about education reform. They've had a couple meetings on property tax reform. And I don't know that they've gotten anywhere. Definitely, the education's been meeting for a couple weeks. I hear they're getting closer. The property tax conference committee has only met for 2 times. And they kind of do this is in, this is out, this is what we could talk about. Both the leaders of both parties come in and say, okay, we'll do this, but we won't do this. And then they try to negotiate the thing out.
So does that have any chance of passing this year, some sort of property tax reform?
I think something's going to come out. I really do.
Okay.
I am concerned that it's just going to be real wimpy. And but the governor, everyone's priority is, at least we campaigned on it, is to do something on property tax.
Right.
So
both sides of the aisle, everybody campaigned on it.
So I think that hey, I'm going to be optimistic right now and say I hope something comes out of there. And then we have several budgets that have been to conference committee. We have several that right now the House has kind of been working on, and today we had we had the Medicaid this morning, where we, of course, voted for the House version, which would be the Healthy Iowa Plan, and that's going to go to conference committee. So that was sent to conference committee today. So there's a lot of work to be done. That's why I'm very cautious about saying when we'll be out of there. I'd really love to say we'll be out of there next Friday. The good news to all Iowans that are out there is we're done being paid. When that happens, typically the people that I serve with, including myself, we're tightwads. And that means the people from out of town, which I'm not from out of town, they got to get a hotel on their own dime.
Right.
And they got to drive back and forth on their own dime. And so there's no per diems or anything like that goes on. And so that is a good thing because that really starts adding the pressure. It wouldn't surprise me that we go through next week and they're far away from negotiating everything. Maybe have some done, some not done, where they'll send us home and then they'll call us back. Right. I do not believe that we will get anything done on Healthy Iowa Plan or Medicaid. I think that's a big enough subject matter for us to cover and big issue to all Iowans.
Yeah.
The governor still has to send his plan out to the Department of Human Services person out in Washington, D.C. It still has to have, approval there based on his plan. Right. And then, who knows how long that's going to take. So probably best, from what I've been hearing, is we're going to put that aside and then probably be called back to a special session. And the reason why that's important is the Iowa Cares program, which is now the Healthy Iowans Plan, expires at the end of this year. Right. And we don't, we're not interested in throwing, 60,000 people off of that plan because we didn't do our work. So I actually feel that there's not, based on what was said on the Senate floor this morning, because it wasn't good, but I do believe that that we will come to some kind of compromise. And that's what I'm trying to let everybody know. The pressure is on all of us. Believe me, we're hearing from the healthcare industry, hundreds of emails from them wanting us to do the Medicaid expansion. But I personally absolutely will not vote for that Medicaid expansion. And
the Healthy Iowa Plan, the Senate rejected that this morning.
The Senate did this morning, yes. Actually, what happened is, that's right. We voted yes to the Healthy Iowa Plan. The Democrats voted no, and it was a recorded vote.
Party line fell on party line.
100%.
And I read, it was just yesterday, the Wall Street Journal had a good article. Did you get to read that?
Yes, I did.
I mean, that kind of smacked down every single argument the Democrats have made. For one, they're saying, well, if Iowa doesn't accept this Medicaid expansion, your tax dollars are going to go to another state. Well, that's not true. The federal government cannot take that money that they were going to give to Iowa and give to another state. They can't do that. And, I mean, the basic gist of the article is it saves money if you reject the Medicaid expansion.
Because our people in Washington, D.C. can't do the job to cut back on spending. We have the ability in the United States, all of the states, in regards to Medicaid expansion, we have the ability to cut $609 billion out of their spending out there if we would do the right thing and be more self-sufficient. That is 7 times the size of deforestation
it's a hard
cuts
word
that
to
were
say.
happening.
Yeah.
And so this is really a big deal. That article, I cannot recommend to all your viewers to get to the Wall Street Journal and read that article because it lays it out in black and white and how important this issue is. Absolutely.
Well, we'll talk about that and many other things when we continue on the Iowa Legislative Hour on Webcast One Live.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And welcome back to the Iowa Legislative Hour. Kevin Hall, along with my co-host Art Smith. State Senator Brad Zaun is in the studio with us. And we have another guest who just joined us, just wrapped up the legislative session for the day. State Representative from Ankeny, Kevin Koester. Representative Koester, welcome.
It's good to be a part of this program today. Thanks.
We're glad to have you. Since this is your first time on the show, we do this with all of our new guests. Just give us a little bit of your background. Tell us about yourself and the district you represent.
It's really hard for a politician to talk about himself, but thanks for the opportunity. Well, Kevin's lived in Ankeny a little over 30 years, was a school administrator there for much of that time in a position called community education, served on a lot of local community involvement pieces. This is my fifth year, third term, serving in the Iowa House, representing Ankeny. And we've grown such a booming little town there north of our good capital that there's 2 reps now.
Right.
And the north half of Ankeny is represented by John Landon. And I know I'm supposed to talk about me, but just a quick thing about this guy. He's one of 21 in the entire nation to have been selected by GOPAC to be an emerging leader, to go train there and do something next month as an emerging leader amongst Republicans.
And that was just announced a couple days ago.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Tuesday. Okay.
So we're proud of John and our state senator Jack Whitfer that serves alongside Senator Brad Zaun here, and again, I'm in my third term. I chair government oversight, did ethics the last session as chair of that, serve on a number of committees, ethics, education, human resources, state government, and I'm forgetting something that must be very important.
That's okay.
So, Representative Koester, just one question. We when we bring new folks, I mean new as in freshmen, members of the House and Senate, we'll also ask them, so what has surprised you so far? And so you've been there for 5 years, right? So In 5 years, I'm sure you walked in the first day with some impressions. How have those impressions changed over the time that you've been there?
The two fun things for me on that are the difference between local and state, and then lobbyists and state compared to federal. On the local level, I was very involved in a lot of things that would engage my school board or city council. And the number of months of local awareness of key issues, once in a while you'd hear a criticism, where'd you clowns come up with that stuff, and why wasn't it in the media and covered more thoroughly?
Yeah.
But compared to the State House, it took an enormous amount of time to put in front of people methodical presentations that allowed the public to engage and understand well in advance.
Okay.
Now, when I see, back to the word lobbyist, somebody present the idea that you should get a hold of your senator or your representative in the next couple of days, it doesn't mean maybe. When I'm told it's on the agenda, it could be over with tomorrow.
Right.
And so it is, there are times, because there's 1,000 bills introduced in a session, that if it wasn't something that you served upon relative to a subcommittee or more commonly on the committee that passed it forward, that there's a lot to learn in a very short time. And people with a strong opinion should express that quickly. It's very important. On the lobbyist piece, real brief, the media trained me on what a lobbyist is. And I went down there expecting that, they'd have a manipulative manner to how they present their opinion and what they get to, how they approach me and what they leave. And I generally ended the conversation with, wow, you make a strong point here. What's the other side? They told me. They were very good at understanding the other side, being very straightforward. It's not like what I see and read about mostly at the federal level. The $2.99 rule means they're not buying you dinners or stuff.
Right.
And it's a very good place. They're actually my favorite. I grew up in education, so let me pick up on superintendents real briefly with my example about how great lobbyists are. When I talk to a school superintendent, they want Brad and I to understand everything there is to know about education and all the stuff that it's not germane to the bill. It's just not really relevant. They talk too much, too long.
Yeah.
And they don't understand how a bill becomes a law, so they weave in other points that really don't matter. I'm not picking on superintendents, but it's a common type of experience for me.
Sure.
And lobbyists, they can tell when my eyes are glazing over a little bit and there's too much blended fuel conversation to be real clear and simple and straightforward. And so then they back up, get to the main points. They leave you with a short piece of paper, not a something bigger than my Bible, and they show me what I need to understand. And I really do appreciate that kind of professionalism around our lobbyists. They can't buy your vote. They can't tell you misinformation. They won't last. They don't stay in the profession if they're not very upfront, very honest. And so that surprised me. When I was new, I just expected something different, and I'm very pleasantly surprised by that, and not so pleasantly surprised by how quickly some things can move onto the floor and be done the next day without this kind of due process that I praised at the local level, thinking once in a while that was moving too fast. Well, that's an eternity in comparison.
Yeah.
What about that Brad Zaun guy? What do you think of him?
Well, we're both Dowling grads, and his son's going to play football at Iowa.
Right.
I'm a Hawkeye. I mean, but beyond the politics, where we generally agree, what more could a guy ask for? Brad Zaun's it.
Yeah, whatever.
Brad, do you share his appreciation for lobbyists?
I agree with him 100%.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was very surprised about that. If a lobbyist lies to you, they're done. Because I'm going to tell him and I'm going to tell 149 other people. And they are good resources. And certainly one thing that I've learned since I've gotten there is if an idea sounds like a great idea, well, let's do it. Well, there's always a constituency that's going to be against it. So you got to be careful and be reserved about what you decide. And like I said, you just never know based on the DNA thing. I mean, there's some issues you just have a hard time figuring out. But I think I agree with 100% whatever he said in regards or what he said in regards to the lobbyists.
Okay.
They're good people.
All right.
In Iowa.
In Iowa, right. Got to specify that. Before you joined us, Representative Koester, we were talking about things going on in the Capitol, and for one, the legislative session and the length of it supposed to end today. Do you have any kind of prognostication on how long this thing's going to go on?
Well, my first prognostication would be that tomorrow is day 110. We won't make it. we left a discussion of House Republicans that was not closed in nature on a notion that we are going to make a hard drive to end the thing next week. Mm-hmm. I may be a dreamer, but there were certain things that had to happen this week in terms of budgets and things that needed to go into joint conference. A couple hours ago, we moved forward the standings bill, which often stays till the end. It can be the day before sine die, our nickname for the end. Mm-hmm. That was done, and then we took up the Senate bill, so both sides have had a chance to work on that particular major policy piece of all the miscellaneous potluck stuff that could come up at the end and be piled into one big standings bill. And so that's back to the Senate, and we did one more budget this afternoon that we resisted, which means it goes to joint conference. We got one done that goes straight to the governor. We didn't touch it. We took it from the Senate and sent it on down. So the pace of progress takes not a miracle, maybe a minor miracle, to see the kind of collaboration and commitment towards getting intelligent negotiations completed next week on several pieces that would still include ed reform.
Where does that stand right now? I mean, you guys made the offer to the Senate Democrats that you would do the 4% for the next 2 years if they would accept your education reforms or Governor Branstad's education reforms. They didn't jump at that bait. What's going on now? Because I've heard, in private conversations from some House representatives that, they might want to jump on it while they have the chance, because that 4% might not sit there forever.
There's not a lot of chance, but there's some chance it goes back to zero. And we have seriously had that discussion. Yet 4% is still on the table. And unlike the original offer that said, take it or leave it, we ain't changing nothing. Mm-hmm. Forgive my French in a point of emphasis.
No, that's fine.
That's where we were geared. We have agreeably let go of several things in the policy positional fighting in order to work toward getting it done. Statement number one, is education reform needed? Lord, is anybody happy with our performance?
No.
There shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And given that, starting from that, it's time to buy some reform. The strongest arguments are about things that we have either introduced into policy that are going to be optional. A school district that doesn't want to measure a principal or a teacher according to effectiveness achievement methodologies doesn't get as much money. Mm-hmm. They can opt out. We made it that simple. I'm very proud of that. And then the next piece is just in terms of we could get as petty as whether or not we're going to require that a public school teacher or licensed person in the private sector is going to do a homeschooler's driver education.
Right.
There are some little bitty policy pieces. Forgive me for being so blunt, but there really are some minor pieces. The major point would be, as I listen to local school officials, elected or school administrators, there is very little in this that they care about. The petty fight is amongst the pettiness of the politicians trying to sort out what part of their ego gets to stay in the game and what part doesn't. And that's on both sides. But clearly, when the Republicans bellied up with the 4% money, and it's 4%, there's minor quibbling over the 2+2 in terms of what it does in the formula.
I went to public school. 2+2 in my school equaled 4. So,
yeah. Did you have new math?
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, it still works.
Yeah, it still equaled 4%. So this talk that I believe it was Kornbach said on the Senate floor, well, it's not really 4%. How is 2+2 not 4? I understand the funding's coming from a different area for the first fiscal year, but it's still 4%.
And the really minor point of it is how much of that 4% stays in the base to be built upon in compound interest kinds of conversation. And so that's what it builds on. But to a school district, it's an equivalent amount of money for next year. Mm-hmm. Those that need it ought to be telling their Senate Democrats that take it before it is withdrawn. I really do believe that. I say that with passion because it's true. And the notion of arguing over the little things the locals don't care about is holding up an offer that at least sees some of the meaningful reform would occur. And we're proud of that. We need that. There is nothing harmful left in there that no matter what educational official looks at it, of the things that might have been arguably harmful, those things are stripped out. So it's a good bill.
You touched on the driver's ed for homeschoolers. Is that still in there, or is
Yes.
that okay?
It's been asked to be pulled out.
To me, that just makes common sense. I mean, if people are able to homeschool their kids on science and math and history, and Brad's nodding his head there, why not? Why is it not okay for them to teach driver's ed, Brad?
Well, I learned how to drive from my dad.
Yeah.
I was not homeschooled. We, as a state of Iowa, entrust those parents to educate their kids as homeschoolers. Why wouldn't we let them teach our kids how to drive?
I mean, you would think they would have more skin in the game than a driver's ed teacher.
There would still be a test, through at least they did when I was a kid. There was a random test if you actually had to do the driving test. That would still all be in place. Everything with the Department of Transportation would be still in place.
The real question is whose kids are they? Are they the parents' kids, or are they the state's kids?
They're not enemies of the state, but they don't belong to the state.
They should be the parents' kids.
Right, and that I think is part of the issue with our mindset, just in general, with the mindset of those that really want to exert so much control, is this sense that the kids they're wards of the state now, and then they have delegated that responsibility to the parents for some stuff, but they're going to keep control over others. Anyway.
We talked about this in the first segment with Senator Zaun, and I wanted to get your take on it too. House File 527, the DNA, taking samples of DNA for someone convicted of an aggravated misdemeanor. It passed the Senate with a few changes yesterday or the day before, and they're going to send it back to the House. What's your take on that bill? Because Brad said it was one of the toughest votes he ever had to take in his history in the Iowa Senate.
Yeah, there's certainly an invasion of privacy, but I think as a criminal at that level, I gave up my right to refuse. And so I'm in.
Okay. So, and you think with it going back to the House with just a few minor changes, it'll probably pass again and then go on to the governor?
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Let's talk a little bit about, because Brad, you just sent out your newsletter, your weekly newsletter today, and comparing the two budgets, which you're not happy with either one. The House Republicans' budget was $6.4 billion. The Senate Democrats' budget was $6.9 billion. $500 million difference, and an 11% increase over last year's budget. How frustrated are you with this growth of spending?
Well, I think if you read my newsletter, I said, put the money in the government's hands, they'll spend it. Typically, that's what happens. We had a lot of conversations earlier in the year about being able to give a tax credit to all Iowans that are tax-paying citizens, or maybe even send a check. Well, that's evaporated. There's nothing going on. There's no conversations about that. What happened is that money ended up in our hands, and unfortunately, we're going to spend it. Now, I will have to say the House has certainly had a lot more discipline than the Senate Democrats have. The Senate Democrats' plan, they're spending more than we take in.
Right.
And secondly, of course, that's bad policy.
And what stuns me, and having gone to some legislative forums around the state this year, they're saying, Senate Democrats are saying, we're showing fiscal restraint. We're only spending 94% of the overall budget when the limit is supposed to be 99%. Can you explain that fallacy?
Well, what they do is they're manipulating numbers, is what they're doing.
They're talking about spending one-time money,
right? And they're out there telling everybody there's $1 billion extra around. Well, we have to, by the code, put a certain amount of money in our reserves and our rainy day fund. And who knows what's going to happen? We need, personally, I'd like to see us pay off these bonds early on the iJobs that was done several years ago. If we're not going to do that, let's pay down our debt.
Are we in a position? Can we do that? I mean,
I believe that we can do that.
Okay.
I believe that was Auditor David Vought's suggestion as well. Now, I guess former Auditor Vought is his last day on the job, I believe. Yeah. Was it this week?
I think it was Wednesday or something like that. Yeah. We had a reception for him.
Which he did a fantastic job.
We miss him.
Yeah. So, it's just very frustrating to me. This is typical of what happens. It wasn't typical when I was mayor. We didn't operate that way. And we cut. We went to the private sector to try to find out what services we provide to our citizens. We got that tax rate as low as we possibly can. I think that all Iowans have been overtaxed, and they deserve to have some of that money back. But it is what it is, and I have voted against every appropriations bill, and I'll continue to do so. Of course, they are the Senate bills that I've been voting against.
Right. Representative Koester is same issue. The budget, the House Republicans' budget does increase spending over last year somewhat, not anywhere close to what the Senate Democrats propose. But what are your thoughts on the budget bill and where we're headed?
We have held strong to a 3% increase that takes us to spending 98 cents of every dollar of ongoing revenue. So that excludes several features of revenue available to spend because they're not ongoing. And so that's a fairly conservative approach. On the other hand, I believe, I heard today, I'm not positive it's accurate, but I believe we've had our 9th quarter of projections being under our reality in terms of the revenues received in state government. So giving, regardless of who's right about what number of quarters, we're on a trend line of, thank God for agriculture, because it's carrying our base.
Right.
But financially, it is fueling a recovery here. And so our revenues exceed expectations. Given that, we're still spending well under, 2% under. What will happen in these closing days? If we are to get out of there, and if I were to be an optimist about that being Saturday of next week, whatever that is, the 11th, there's a chance. It would be because, not because we caved in on targets that were a commitment of House Republicans in appropriations, and I serve on that. That's the committee I forgot when I was rattling them off.
That was your Rick Perry moment.
Yeah, that kind of an important committee. And so that, but yep, that escaped me. The approps will work with each of those budgets, looking at what policy are we giving up, what amount of money are we giving up, are we still staying under? We will not overspend. We will not spend every dollar coming in. We will come away from this session accomplishing that objective because it's a core belief of all 53 of the House Republicans.
Yeah.
Very good. You're watching the Iowa Legislative Hour on Webcast One Live. We're going to take a break. Be back to talk about some more insider happenings in the state of Iowa, politically speaking, not only at the Capitol, but branch out a little bit as well. Back in a moment on the Iowa Legislative Hour.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Iowa Legislative Hour for this week. I am your host, Kevin Hall, along with Art Smith. Representative Koester had a previous engagement. He had to duck out, but we appreciate him stopping by. So we're stuck with Brad Zaun for the final segment.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure we can pepper him with enough questions that we can at least keep him talking.
It's the hot seat. I'm on the red seat.
I know it's tough for you to come up with things to say, Brad.
Well, I'm always opinionated.
Well, let's talk about something that's been in the news quite a bit the last couple of days. One of your colleagues in the Senate, Kent Sorensen from Milo, there's been an ongoing Senate Ethics Committee investigation. There were 3 charges. One of them was dropped. 2 charges remaining that were filed by Peter Waldron, who worked on the Michelle Bachmann presidential campaign with Senator Sorensen. Brad, you also were a volunteer state chairman on that campaign.
There'll be no investigation about me.
Okay.
I didn't get a dime.
Good to know.
I think that takes away from the integrity of the endorsement, by the way. I think anytime
when
you're paid,
when
you're paid, I think it takes
or
away from the
allegedly paid.
Yeah.
Right, allegedly.
Just what is your take on the whole situation? We should tell people, in case you don't know, it has now been sent on to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who will appoint a special investigator to look into it. The vote was 4-2 by the Senate Ethics Committee, bipartisan committee. Sandy Griner being the one Republican who voted to move it forward, along with 3 Democrats. Your thoughts on it?
Well, I think we need to let the investigation move forward and get the facts. In full disclosure, This is a very tough position for me to be in, because this is a colleague, and I was Michelle Bachmann's co-chair at one time. Then in the end, being the chairman of the campaign.
Right, that being after Sorensen left in the final
I
week.
really can't comment because I assume I'll be part of the investigation, and well, let's just get to the bottom of it. I think that he is innocent until proven guilty, like everyone else that's out there. It's unfortunate that it happens, and I think all of us in the Iowa Senate, all 49, 48 of us, want to just get to the bottom of it and move on from it. And so we'll see what happens.
Of course, the issue being there are allegations that Senator Sorensen was paid via a third party, and the Senate ethics rule, they don't have this in the Iowa House, but it is in the Iowa Senate. It's basically you cannot receive payment from a presidential campaign.
I'm told you cannot receive payment from a presidential campaign or a political party, either directly or indirectly.
So that's what they're investigating. Sorensen is denying it. I thought Sandy Griner made a good point. Senator Sorensen released some affidavits yesterday morning prior to the hearing, and one of those being from an attorney who looked at one bank account that he owned, the Senator Sorensen owned, and this attorney stated that there's no payments from this group and no payments in the amount of $7,500, which is what he allegedly was paid per month. And Senator Griner said, well, why didn't he release his tax records? He just gives us one bank account. I have more than one bank account. She said, I assume he does too. I have more than one bank account. So, I thought it was a good point in the hearing that she made.
Well, we'll just wait and see what the investigation
And I know it's a tough subject for you to talk about. Let's talk about some other things, just more broadly going on here in Iowa. As you know, we're still looking for a Republican nominee or Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate race. You briefly considered getting in that race and opted not to. And everybody's kind of waiting on Steve King. And now, one of your colleagues in the state Senate, Joni Ernst from Red Oak, is strongly considering getting in. In fact, she's saying if Steve King does not enter the race, she likely will. What do you think about Senator Ernst?
Well, I really think the world of Senator Ernst.
She's a great lady.
Yes, very good. I think she's very capable of doing this. Well, I just have to wait to see what happens. I had an interesting conversation with the New York Times today in regards to this particular race, and there's an article, I guess, coming out in the next day or two. And I've had quite a few phone calls the last probably 3 weeks asking me to reconsider. But I believe we will find a very good candidate. I see the Bill Northey got out today, which that wasn't a big surprise to me. I would say that Congressman King needs to make a decision.
I agree.
I've kind of just was looking on Facebook and saw some negative comments about him, just saying, come on, make a decision one way or the other because you're hurting us. So I think it's going to be so important. We will find a great candidate. There's some people that are actually looking at, including Senator Ernst.
Matt Whitaker.
Yep, and I think that those are two good people, and who knows? I'm going to guess there's going to be 4 or 5 people that'll get in.
Very likely.
And but we need to, Congressman King needs to make a decision so that allows the other people to prepare because this is going to be a dogfight.
Yeah.
And we're going to have someone that's ready. There's going to be a primary. They'll go through that process. And then we'll have a good candidate, and I'm excited.
Do you think the longer that Congressman King waits to publicly announce that, the more likely it is that he's going to announce that he is going to run?
I don't know. I talked to Congressman King for quite a long time when I was considering doing this. I would tell you that if I was not going to sit around and wait for him. I was going to I think if I would give advice, and this is based on some of the people that I've talked to that know more about this than I do, the person that announces first that's organized is probably going to be in better shape and made some phone calls. I know that that there's some phone calls that are happening out there with some of the candidates, and I think that they'd be best just to get in there. Certainly, no one's going to beat Steve King in a primary.
Right.
But that's why everybody's kind of waiting around to see what's going on.
Because you don't want to spend a lot of money when you're not going to.
Well, right. And I mean, this is a big task.
Oh, it's huge.
I mean, you've got a lot of things you got to do. And I got a little taste of it from the United States Congress run. Now, I've been talking, at the time I was talking to people that have done these campaigns. A guy that was going to do my campaign helped out with Senator Cruz down in Texas. And he said, going from United States Congress, running for United States Congress versus United States Senate, is like playing Little League Baseball versus Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
It's that big of a step.
Right.
And so you got to be prepared. And I tell you, her background with her military experience is outstanding.
Talk about Johnny
And
Ernst.
I've seen her, and I've seen her in action at the Senate, the Iowa Senate. She's done an outstanding job. She's a very passionate person. I know she's hardworking. She'd be a good candidate.
I thought this was funny. Congressman Tom Latham sent an email out to supporters today, and the subject line was, "I am strongly reconsidering."
I saw that, and I opened it immediately.
I haven't read that one yet.
And then you open it, and it talks about his annual summer picnic, and I'm strongly reconsidering that it's actually spring in Iowa. So
I grabbed that thing, and
it was
funny.
Yeah, it was.
There's a lot of Iowans that wish that would happen.
Yep, there it is.
It was a nice little gotcha, but I think he would have been a strong candidate. But I think we're going to have the Republican Party is going to have a strong candidate, regardless of who gets in. I think there's good people out there.
It's all going to come down to resources in the end. Iowans can't, I guess, hold up or suspend this campaign with just their dollars. It's going to take some outside people. It's going to take the Republican Senate committee to get involved in this thing. We will have a good candidate. Listen, Bruce Braley is very, very liberal. He does not represent Iowa values. He likes to go around Iowa telling everybody that he's a moderate, but he's not. And certainly, I don't want another trial lawyer representing me in the United States
He
Senate,
was the president of the Iowa Trial Lawyers Association.
So I feel confident we're going to find a candidate, and certainly I'll be working hard for that, whatever our nominee is.
Let's talk a little bit about an issue that it keeps being brought up, and I know you're very strong on this issue, the issue of life, and the efforts by Republicans in the Iowa House and the Iowa Senate to strip taxpayer funding for all abortions. Senator Amy Sinclair tried that in the Senate, and that fell on party lines, I believe, last week. The House Republicans passed that, I believe, this week. Is there any chance of this going forward? I know it's...
I think there's a possibility.
Really?
What was unfortunate last year is that we were in the same situation we were last year, where the House Republicans said, we're not voting for a Health and Human Services budget until that is taken out of the budget. What was really unfortunate is that they did they just suspended that.
Yeah, they
did a supplemental.
Took it out of the budget, but it never got put into the Iowa code.
Right, and so it's really unfortunate. I will not, absolutely, positively not vote for any dollar going to support abortions. I don't care what budget bill it's in. I don't care if I'm in the majority and there's one member that's got to swing the. That's the problem. They've got a slim majority in the House. You can only lose one or two people on a vote. And I can just tell you this: if I'm in the majority, which I assume I will be in 2 years, I will not, even if it's a 26-24, I'm not going to vote for it. And so you have to stand on principle, and I hope the House Republicans do. I hope that the governor doesn't, does the same, and I assume he will. Yep. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it is a very contentious issue and passion on both sides of the aisle. I don't understand why. I don't know why anybody would support abortions, but
especially taxpayer funded.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's all, and I'm not a purist. I'll save one child at a time if I have a bill in front of me, and some people think differently than myself.
Sure.
But we'll see what happens.
Well, you co-sponsored and I think there were 20 Republican senators that co-sponsored Senator Guth's bill that it was more or less a personhood bill that would ban all abortions.
Well, that's correct, and that's what I would do.
Yeah.
All right.
So, moving on.
Kevin gave me that look.
What else? I mean, is there anything left that you think is going to get accomplished this legislative session in these final weeks or however long you guys are still in session?
They talked about the fuel mix bill, which we have not seen in the Senate. Really, when it gets down to last week, we need to concentrate on the budget. I even had someone email me this afternoon and said, why don't you try to amend something on a particular issue that they had. We have to discipline all of ourselves. Yes, there's a lot of frustrations. We didn't get legislation through. The scariest part about this time of year is things get thrown in, policy matters get thrown into some of these appropriations bills at the very end when they really haven't been through the due process.
Right.
I'm a person, I like to see and read and study. The standings bill, when I first got down there, the standings bill, I remember it was done one time. We got a 150-page bill at 11 o'clock at night. And I told Senator Gronstel several years ago, if you do that again, I will defer on this bill and defer until everybody has a chance to read these bills. It's very important that we all know what's in these bills before we vote on them.
Yeah.
And so I do not think we should be doing much more policy. I think we need to focus on the budget and get out of there. Of course, policy would include property tax and education reform. Right. But I do believe that we need to just say that's enough. We're going to concentrate on just these bills and these budget bills, and then we're going to nothing else, and we're going to get out of there.
So you don't think with education reform should they just let it slide by, or? Heck
no. I'm going to vote against that bill. It's going to do nothing. And Kevin would have been someone that been great to talk to, as he's in the education or he's got an educational background. There's nothing in that bill that'll improve student performance. Yep. You see in that bill, up and down that bill, teacher. We got great teachers. I acknowledge that. But there's nothing in there. They'll say, there's a few components in there. I like the homeschooling component of it. There's some that I do like. But this will not improve student achievement. And that is really, if you look at the title of the bill, it says education reform. It doesn't say anything about money. Doesn't say anything about 4%. I'm sick and tired, and this is just myself speaking, throwing more money to education with very little accountability and no student improvement on their achievement skills.
Yeah.
Just to kind of take you back to the beginning of the show when we talked about traffic cameras, what is the next step? What is going to happen now that the statewide ban has failed?
Well, I think the Department of Transportation will continue to try to reel back some of these traffic enforcement cams where they have jurisdiction. But it's going to be, we're going to start all over. I will tell you that I got an email today from a citizen in Iowa City that is petitioned the Iowa City Council. Evidently in their city code, you could do that, to ask them to reconsider to take all the cameras out in Iowa City. They had a problem with some of the petition signatures they had. They just turned in another 1,451, I think it was, signatures that they're asking. You got 10 days to do it. I think that we're going to have to deal with this thing in the next year, and really Iowans need to measure in on this. Like I said on the House or the Senate floor, is that there is polling that's out there that says Iowans don't like these traffic enforcement cameras, and they are out of control. And what was brought up, which was new in the debate, was that there is no inspections on these cameras if they're accurate or not accurate.
Wow.
And so
the whole process is a mess. I mean, even if you could make a case for this being constitutional and appropriate, everything about how it's managed, how the process works, how people just really feel intimidated by, I got this thing in the mail, I got to go pay it, is just wrong.
Yep,
it's just wrong.
I agree.
Brad, keep up the good fight.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be on this program, and I'm sorry that I keep coming back. Here's what I struggle with.
We're glad to have you.
What people don't, or what you might not, and your listeners might not understand, is that most legislators go home on Thursday afternoons, and so it's very hard. And then a lot of the legislators, like Jack Whitford's got a business he's got to go to.
Sure.
Mark Shelgren is in New York, and so I do get, we try to get the guests every week, but I really appreciate the time and you guys at least here on this side, because as Republicans, we don't get our side out in an effective way because we don't have avenues through the Des Moines Register and some of the other medias that are out there.
Well, we appreciate the time that it takes to come out here and talk with us and just all the insights that you and your colleagues have provided as we've been exploring this year. This has been very positive.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
That's Senator Brad Zaun. For my co-host Art Smith, I'm Kevin Hall. Thanks for watching another edition of the Iowa Legislative Hour. Have a great weekend.